Kanye West is not in competition with rappers. He's not worried about chart positions, Grammy nominations, or who's got the hottest verse of the year. He says his real competition is way bigger than that. In a leaked video, Kanye made it clear he's up against the CEO of Universal Music Group and the French banks that own massive financial stakes in Africa.
We competition with the French bank that own 85% of Africa. How about that? While we fighting amongst each other.
But what does that even mean? How does a rapper go from battling for rap dominance to fighting against the same people who fund the global music industry? And more importantly, what is Kanye really trying to say? Let's break it down. Kanye has always talked about power, control, and ownership. He has ranted about corporations, brands, and record labels for years. Back in the day, he told Sway, "I made music that made money, but at the end of the day, Lucian Grainge still cut my music checks." And now, a decade later, he's still saying the same thing, except this time, he's making connections that go beyond just the music industry. Lucian Grainge runs Universal Music Group, which is owned by a bigger company called Vivendi. But Vivendi itself is tied to something even bigger, French banking powerhouses like Citibank. And according to Kanye, these banks don't just control music labels, they own 85% of Africa's wealth. That sounds like a wild claim, but when you start pulling on the threads, things start to get interesting. Vivendi, the parent company that owns UMG, recently partnered with the Rothschilds family, one of the most powerful and influential financial dynasties in history. Together, they made a $1.9 billion deal to acquire Maven Records, one of the biggest music powerhouses in Africa. Now, if Kanye is talking about ownership and control, this is where things start making sense. It's not just about record labels anymore. It's about who funds them, who profits from them, and who ultimately controls the industry that artists like Kanye and Drake operate in. And speaking of Drake, Kanye threw some shots in his direction too. He said Drake has a rich baby daddy named Lucian, and that Universal funds his career.
Drake has a rich baby daddy named Lucian.
So all of his streams in the number ones is controlled by someone named Lucian.
You know, everybody is very, very excited about the elimination of Drake. Not excited, we was energized.
That's not just shade, it's a bigger statement about how artists, even the biggest ones, are still tied to the system. No matter how much money they make, the real power is in the hands of people like Lucian Grainge and the institutions behind him. This isn't a new argument from Kanye. He's been saying for years that artists are trapped in a system where they don't really own their work. He's called it a new form of slavery, where musicians, designers, and even billionaires like himself are still dependent on an elite class that controls wealth, industries, and global markets. Back in his 2013 interview with Sway, Kanye went off about how the biggest brands, Balenciaga, Louis Vuitton, Puma, Givenchy, are all owned by a handful of powerful men. Francois Pinault, Bernard Arnault, Renzo Rosu. These aren't household names, but they control the fashion industry. And when you look at the music industry, it's the same thing. A few major players decide which artists get pushed, which albums get funding, and who gets to sit at the table. And when someone tries to challenge that structure, they get shut down fast. Independent labels struggle to compete. Artists who speak out suddenly find their projects delayed or shelved, and entire careers can vanish overnight. The game isn't just about talent, it's about access, control, and knowing who really calls the shots. Kanye sees himself as fighting against this system, but the question is, can he actually win? Or is this fight even real? Some people think Kanye is just ranting again. They even see social media posts announcing that he is on the spectrum for autism. They hear him talking about French banks and the Rothschilds and immediately dismiss it as another conspiracy theory. But Kanye isn't talking about secret societies or the Illuminati. He's talking about real documented financial power. These companies are not hidden organizations. They operate openly, making billion-dollar moves while the public focuses on the latest rap beefs and sneaker drops. The idea of new slavery isn't just about artists being signed to bad contracts. It's about the entire structure of wealth distribution. Kanye isn't just talking about himself. He's saying that even at the highest levels, power is concentrated in the hands of a very small group of people. According to Forbes, there are over 1,800 billionaires in the world, but only a tiny fraction of them are black. Even among the wealthiest of the wealthy, the people making the real decisions belong to an even smaller, more exclusive club. And that's the real point Kanye is making. It's not about record labels versus artists or rappers competing against each other. It's about recognizing who really owns and controls the industries that shape culture. Kanye has been fighting this battle for years. He tried to break into the fashion world, but he was blocked by the same system he's talking about now. When he wanted to start his own brand, he had to go through corporate gatekeepers. Even when he became a billionaire, he was still operating within a system that controlled access, funding, and visibility. It's the same thing in music. Artists can get rich, but who owns their recording masters? Who controls distribution? Who decides which songs get playlisted, which albums get promoted, and which artists get long-term careers? And Kanye's argument goes beyond just music and fashion. He brings up the prison industrial complex, consumer culture, and how people are distracted by surface-level entertainment while real power remains in the hands of a few.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all? You know, like, it's like we're mentally in prison.
The Corrections Corporation of America literally made deals with state governments to guarantee prison occupancy rates. These are real power moves that operate in the background while people debate celebrity drama on social media. Kanye's frustration is that people don't see the bigger picture. They think he's just complaining about his own problems, but he's trying to point out a structure that affects everyone. He's saying that music labels, luxury brands, banks, and private prisons are all connected in a system where power stays at the top. Now, the real question is, what can Kanye do about it? He's tried to fight back before. He's ran it. He's gone independent. He's exposed the industry's power players.
And that is what it's about. You can have a company, right? When you go and do your companies, don't think because you got the most ownership that you actually have the control. If you don't have the information and the knowledge of how the distribution works, and you're not having that conversation, you don't have the control.
But has anything really changed? Labels are still making billions. Artists are still signing contracts they don't fully control. And the same elite names still dominate industries, from music to fashion to finance. Some people think Kanye is just making noise. Others think he's actually onto something, but doesn't have the power to change it. Either way, he's put the conversation out there. So, what do you think? Will Kanye break free from the system and redefine the music industry? Or will the power of banks and billionaires keep him in check? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest power moves in entertainment.